Did you?
Hey, we're back. We took a piss. We're back. The pod's been through a lot in the last year. Like there were times where I'd run outside and piss and the guy would just totally stop talking. There's times where it just got carried away, but like guys would pee right on camera. Now we shut off the camera. We're like real pros now. We shut it off. We start it again, right? We're like pros here.
Yeah.
You can put your hand up to piss now.
I know.
Right?
Yeah.
It's still up, by the way. I didn't know if you need to go again or not.
No.
Oh, there we go. Now your video's on. Okay. Anyways, moving on. I got a question. We talked about your first game in the NHL. What about your first goal?
Yeah, it was crazy. We were in Nashville and I played it was my fifth game and we were down 2-1.
And you're what, 19 years old at this point?
20, yeah. And
that's insane. You're scoring in the NHL at 20 years old.
Yeah, it was crazy.
I was trying not to wet the bed, like I said.
Back in those days, you could still have ties, right? Like there's no overtime, and that was it. There's no shootouts, and there's a minute and a half left, and I have no idea why I was on the ice. We were down 2-1, and I scored on Thomas Volkun.
Really?
And then we tied up 2-2, and then
with a minute and a half left in the game, you tied the game up.
Yeah. And then in overtime, I was on a 2-on-1, had a wide, like at a picked off a cross ice pass, knocked it out of midair, and then I put it to a guy behind me. We went down a 2-on-1, and he made an unreal pass, wide open net. I don't know what happened. If I closed my eyes, I completely missed the puck, and I would have.
You could have won the game in overtime for your second goal.
Yeah. And it was actually this guy Adam Monroe, who's you might know
goalie.
That name. Yeah, it was his first. I think it was his first game or his first. Anyway,
first start or something.
Yeah, something you got to. Yeah, so yeah, he was. But anyways, it was awesome. And then we went back to Chicago. We flew back that night and I had a good time. It was fun.
Oh man, I can't imagine scoring a goal in the NHL. That would have been really, really exciting.
Yeah, it was cool.
Okay, so then you got another one that year too, though, eh?
Mm-hmm.
Who's that one against?
I guess when you only score 2 in your career, you can remember them both. The second one was against Chris Osgood.
Oh, that would have been when they were really good.
It was in St. Louis. They were good. It was in St. Louis. It was on the power play.
Chris Osgood played for St. Louis?
Yeah.
I don't even remember that.
Yeah. Actually fact check that before you put this on.
It was Chris Osgood. It's okay. Everything's hypothetical in the shit. The research team is not real, folks. Everything we talk about is hypothetical.
No, it was Chris Osgood. He was top shelf, off his pad.
Top shelf.
Well, it was a backhand from
glove.
No, it was a backhand from about a foot away. It went off his pad and then into the top shelf.
Jeez. No, I think it's really cool that I would have been like, if I would have known I was going to know you when this was going on, I would have been really pumped up when I would have seen that goal go in.
Yeah, that's funny.
I would have been at Western Michigan, just cheered my heart out, but I didn't know.
Oh yeah, you were there with Rayler and.
I was there before him. I never met him until our group chat. No.
But then you were there with Frankie though.
Yes, Frankie was 1 year. I was finishing when he was starting.
Okay. Yeah, because he's younger too, right?
You could call me one of his mentors. Yeah. Okay. Anyways, moving on though. So your second year, after your first year, you played 25 NHL games. Okay. You're knocking on the door of being a full timer. So year 2's the lockout of your pro career. That is tough timing, sir.
Mm-hmm. It was, and there's no regrets now, but I remember at the end of that season, Brian Sutter was talking to me about what my role was going to be the next year, what I was going to be doing. I was going to be a third or fourth line player. Needed to be good on the penalty kill
for the Chicago Blackhawks.
Yeah, and then there was a lockout, and then I went back down to Norfolk, and we had a great coach, Trent Yanni. And that was probably they still say is like the best year of the American League that there ever was. Like every good NHL player that was young enough got sent down.
And I remember that, like it was literally there were Jason Spezza was there, right?
Mm-hmm.
All of them.
Yeah, it was Spezza, Anton Vermette. It was all like Carter and Richards were there. It was such a like.
But you put up 49 points in 80 games.
Yeah. And I played, funny story, my line mate that year was Rene Bourque. He was a rookie. And myself and Matt Ellison were, so we all played together on a line. And a reporter asked Trent Yanni, he was probably one of the best coach I've ever had. And
why?
They asked him why. He was just great. He was honest. He was very, very down to earth. He wasn't afraid to tell you if he didn't think you were playing well enough. He was a great coach. He was a very, very good coach. But he got interviewed by the newspaper, and they said, well, it was Rene Bourque and Brandon Bochenski were like the two guys that were going to win Rookie of the Year. And the reporter asked Jans, he said, well, who should win Rookie of the Year, Vermette or Bourque? And he said, Bourque should win it. Bochenski has got to play with Vermette and Spezza. Bourque's had to play with Matt Ellison and Matt Keith. And sure enough, Bourque won it. So that's good.
But if the NHL team's like grooming you to be the third, fourth liner, but then you go down the AHL, you're putting up big numbers. You're playing power play, like so. You're playing every situation. Then
I think, I was, but I think the thing with me was I was never skilled enough to play. Like I remember after the lockout, when I was getting sent down, it was, God, I want to say it was Dale Talon, whoever the GM was. They said they're sending me down, but they wanted to keep more offensive guys, and they kept two Russian guys that finished behind me in scoring the year before. And I'm like, well, that doesn't make sense because I had more points than them. But it's just, when you looking back now, it's like, well, no, I know my skill set. I wasn't ever going to be a skilled player in the NHL. They wanted me to be something. And I think, looking back, I wasn't skilled enough to play on the top two lines. I probably couldn't skate well enough, and I wasn't a good enough checker to play on the third line. And I wasn't tough enough to play on the fourth line. So there's really no space for me.
You were in between the second and third line.
Basically, yeah, like an in-betweener.
I found I was the same. Like I think I could have put up, I think I could have put up a point a game in the HL after playing some games and seeing what it was, but I wasn't good enough to be a first, second liner in the NHL. I was never going to be a third liner. I was never going to be a fourth liner. I wasn't even allowed to be that in the AHL. And as soon as I saw that after 1 year, I'm like, there's no way I'm ever making it. I have to leave now.
And that's the way it is. It's not like it's just kind of like I guess for myself. And the other part of it too, is I was never the guy in the American League where there's always a few guys on the team who were making like good money, right? Where, where you would,
it's worth it
for me.
Yeah.
And for me, it just, it wasn't like I went to make a ton of money in Europe, but it was more so like when I got to that point, after the last year that I played in Abbotsford, it was like, okay, well, I'm not going to be the guy making.
But it could have been so different. I find is that if once guys are there, once they're in there, and like if that lockout doesn't happen and you have played whatever it was 25 games the year before, and then you play almost a full season, like the Sutters are talking about you being on, or whatever Sutter was talking about you being on the team, and like you go into camp like that, you're going to be on the team, you play a full season. Next thing you know, the person you are, the teammate you are, you play a decade, and then you're not in my shed with me. Sorry.
Right. Yeah. Well, no, but that's the thing too, right? Is that and then Chicago comes out of the lockout. Sutter was gone,
and that he's your guy. You need a
Sutter
guy.
was
You
gone.
need
and they had Trent Yawney became the head coach in Chicago, and that year, my third year pro, he was that my it was third year.
These are the things I had written down. Okay. Here's what the research team questions are. Okay. So after the lockout year, and I got you played with Duncan Keith, whatever, you ran amok, 49 points in 80 games in the AHL in the most loaded season ever. The next year I have written down, do you feel like you should make team out of camp? What is the team saying to you? Why did you what happened?
So that was it. So the third year was
you're saying Trent Yawney's your favorite coach ever, and he's the new head coach, and he doesn't take you. How is he your favorite?
Well,
I want to kick him right in the balls.
No, the next year when I got sent down, that was the year that they said they were keeping guys. You know, it was Igor Radulov, Pavel Vorobiev, some Russian guys who they had, Yakubov, these guys they drafted in the first round before me. And I kind of got that. So I went down to the minors.
You got that, year. But you didn't get that because you're from a small town in Canada. You're like, who are these Russian guys? I don't even know. And you want them more than me? Why?
Yeah. No, and I played that year at a slow start. I broke my toe. So I was out for a bit. I came back, super slow start, and then ended up getting 26 goals, which, was good. And I didn't get called up until the end of the season.
So that was a slow start. Oh, okay. That's what happened there.
Yeah.
Because I saw you had 26 goals and 45 points, and I was like, how did he not make it out of camp? So you're saying you were hurt.
Yeah, no, I wasn't. Although I got sent down, and then I hurt. And long story short, I got hurt in camp, and the GM said, like, well, you weren't ready to play. You're acting like you're just out here playing, and I wasn't. I just, I got hit, and somebody's toe hit my toe, and that was it. But no, it was the coach that year was Mike Havlin, and he was hard on me. Well, not like super hard, but then once I started playing well, he's like, okay, he's like, Jans told me that you could be good, but I didn't realize you could be this good. And I just was scoring a lot the last half of the year. Went to training camp in Chicago the next year. I made the team out of camp.
So are you a better centerman or winger?
Winger. Well, no. Yeah. Well, yeah. I'm a winger.
You play both though, don't you?
Only in Britain I started playing center.
Okay.
Yeah. I wish I had played center earlier in my career.
Yeah.
I just feel for myself. I'm not the best skater. You're kind of, as a winger, I was like up and down, stop, starts. You know how it is.
Oh, I do know. Yeah. Like the stop and starts. Good God. Being able to just cruise. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Figure 8 in front of the net.
Yeah. Okay. Anyways, I got sidetracked again. Where were we?
Yeah. We're talking about that year, not making a team out of camp, and
right. And then you're hurt. Okay. So you get traded, but you did play 2 and more NHL games that year, right?
I played 2 more games. Then I got traded to the next year. I made the team out of camp. I played 2 games, and Jans was the coach, and he did everything he could to keep me there. And then I got sent down to the minors. I got in a fight my first game. I got a concussion. I was in the hospital, and then
From a
ended up getting
punch or
traded.
landed on the ice?
I got punched in the side of my neck. Yeah. And then I ended up, I went back to my hotel.
That gave you a
after.
concussion?
Yeah, I was out for like 6 weeks. Yeah, I was in the hospital. I slept for like 4 days. Yeah, it was brutal. I think it was like, they said it was like whiplash, and they found like blood spots on my brain. And yeah, my first game down. That was my first game down the minors after getting
I'm
sent
getting
down.
background noise now. You got a kid around running around?
No, my wife's unloading the dishwasher.
Oh, that's what it is. Well, thanks for doing that. Anyways, so when you get traded to Portland, okay, this is where our paths somewhat cross. Okay, this is the closest we get before Glasgow. Joe Motzko, Mark Hartigan are on the Syracuse Crunch with me, and I'm on the bus with them. We're cruising, and I really like both of those guys. I thought they were both great guys. And Motzko, one of his things to me was always watch your P's and Q's, your pints and quarts, right? But I was with them, and then I get sent down to Dayton to the coast, and they get traded to the Anaheim organization. And then I see them lifting the Stanley Cup.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that was
like guys I had been on the bus with the same hockey season. We're lifting the Stanley Cup. That was the closest. Mark Hartigan took me and my sister out when she came to town in Syracuse out for a night. And it was a night we won't forget. And like, then I see him lifting the Stanley Cup like months later.
They were awesome guys. Hardy, it was funny because he won a Stanley Cup in Anaheim. He went and won one the next year in Detroit.
With the Red Wings, yeah.
And then Motzko, I played with him in Portland, and then got to play with him again in Salzburg.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I ran into him in Denmark. He was playing for somebody, but
okay.
Yeah, no, it's interesting how it all, but that's as close as we got. I saw that. I'm like, so you got traded there around the same time they did, right?
Yeah. And then Kevin Dineen at the time the head coach in Portland, but he was, I think when he stopped playing, he was like some kind of like director of player personnel for Columbus. So he knew those guys. So he brought them in, or got them to Anaheim, I think.
Well, they were good dudes. When I was in with Syracuse, they were two of my favorite dudes.
Yeah, and they were really, really good players.
Yeah, no, you're right. And skilled guys, but they got traded for Zenon Konopka. Did you play with him?
I did play with him, yeah.
He was
an absolute animal.
Yeah. Yeah, when he was in Syracuse, they were just trying to make the playoffs in the AHL, and he was playing with a broken hand. Yeah,
he was nuts. I remember my first game there because I got traded. I got traded for a guy that was on their first line in Portland, and so they put me on the first line. So I was playing with Z, and I remember we're in Worcester, and my second game, and I didn't pass it to him. He went offside or something, and he fucking started yelling and screaming at me. And I got back to the bench, and I'm like,
"Are you serious?
Don't fucking ever talk to me like that again. What are you talking about?" But I didn't know that's how intense he was. Like, that's just how he was. He came up after. He's like, "Yeah, sorry about that." And I'm like, "Dude," I'm like, "Yeah, man." I'm like, "Well, you're right in front of the coach."
And that's the thing is, he was doing that stuff, but like for me as a young little punk, like I would have never said anything to him. I would have just been like, "I'm sorry, I will pass it to you next time." Right? Like, and that's what I was like in the AHL. I was like, "Okay, you want the puck? Here, you take it. You take it."
Yeah, exactly.
No,
he was a good guy too.
No, like I remember that he came to Syracuse for, I think, those guys for Motzko and Hardy.
It was Konopka and Curtis Glencross.
Oh yeah, Curtis Glencross. Yeah,
Glenny.
You know him too? Then
yeah.
He was living in the hotel with me in Syracuse too.
Yeah, Glennie, yeah, it's Glennie and Z for Hardy and Motzko. Yeah,
That's right. Yeah.
Fuck.
Those are the hotel
Small world.
boys.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So that's where our paths cross. But
yeah.
okay, so after that year, then, so you don't have a sniff then with Anaheim. You don't go.
No,
You're not on the Black Aces with Hardy and Motzko.
no. I broke my toe again.
Oh, geez. You blocking shots again? What are you doing?
No, yeah. Funny story. It was Hardy at the end of practice one time. He was fucking around. And he's like, "Oh, he went to take a slap shot, acting like he was going to shoot at me." And I jumped up to like get out of the way, and he was actually going to shoot it past me. It hit me right on the toe cap again, broke my toe.
Shut up.
Yeah, like so I tried to keep
Screwing
playing,
around
but
at
I
the end of
couldn't.
practice.
Yeah, I couldn't. I tried to play and I couldn't. Like it was brutal. And then yeah, the closest I got to those guys again was when they came up to Vancouver for the playoffs with Anaheim when they were playing Vancouver, and they were all Black Aces. And Kevin Dineen called me. He's like, "Hey, I got a ticket for you to come to the game tonight, hang out with the guys." So I went. I drove down and went to the game and saw those guys. Went out for some beers after, and yeah, that was it. I mean, that was kind of it with Anaheim. I mean, it was good. It just, I guess it just didn't work out, right?
Yeah. So who did you get traded for? What was the deal
I
there?
got traded for PA Parento.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And then who was it? It was like myself and
So you got traded to Anaheim.
I got traded to Anaheim for PA Parento.
And then from Anaheim, you play the rest of that season. You start the next season. So is whatever happens, but you get traded to what's the next team?
Yeah, this
The
is a crazy
Islanders,
story.
the Bridgeport one. So what
Yeah,
goes on there?
Well, what happened was we were down. I was playing with Portland, obviously with Dino, and it wasn't going great. Like it was. I mean, I worked hard, and he.
Hey, by the way, I'm
liked me.
sorry you have to work at 4:45 tomorrow.
It's fine
In the morning.
It's good. It's good.
We're in a groove. You're just gonna you're just gonna have to feel it. Okay.
Yeah. No, we we went down to Bridgeport on a road trip and pregame skate. We practiced at the end of the practice. Like at the end of pregame skate, we practiced power play. So I'm practicing the 5-on-3 power play, and like things are going fine. I'm playing 5-on-3. I'm happy, right? And but offensively, I wasn't having like a great year. So we're in Bridgeport. Like I said, I go back to the hotel after pregame skate, have our pregame meal, lay down, go to sleep for a nap before the game. And you ever get that sense where you think your phone's ringing? Like my phone's on silence, but you like feel like somebody's trying to get a hold of you.
The anxiety of like being late for something as a hockey player.
Yes, I woke up and I looked at my phone and I had a few missed calls from an unknown number. So I called it back, and it was the GM in Anaheim. And he's like, "Hey," "what are you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm sleeping. We got a game tonight." He's like, "Yeah." He's like, "Just let you know, we traded you." I said, "Oh," I said, "Well, where'd you trade me to?" He goes, "Well, we traded you to New York." And I'm like, "Well, perfect. I'm already in Bridgeport." So I played basically pregame skated with Anaheim,
one team and
Portland,
then switched to the other team.
Right? Yeah.
Really?
So I went over to the rink.
You pregame skated with one team and then played against them that night.
Yeah. So I went over to the rink,
and you're a small town guy from a town where you're like family, like you grew up like on a family. You play as a team, and then you just switch teams, and you're like, okay, I play for them now.
And Bridgeport is a beautiful rink. So I'm like, well, fuck, I'm already here, so it's perfect. So I go over to the rink. And all I had was my Anaheim Ducks tracksuit, because for whatever reason, Anaheim wanted the players to wear Ducks tracksuits, not like Portland tracksuits, right? So I walk over to the rink. As I'm walking over there, my best buddy on the team was Brandon Siegel. I don't know if you ever heard of him.
I have. I've seen his name around. Like
so
the research team has seen it.
Yeah. So I call him, and he lives right beside me now. And I'm like, Siegs. Like I leave him a message. I'm like, Siegs. I'm like, I just got traded. I don't have a phone charger. I need your phone charger. My phone's gonna die. So he wakes up and I go over to the rink and I get my gear and I get dressed. I'm jump into the new dressing room and I get dressed or whatever. And Siegs is telling me later, he's like, he was talking to his mom on the phone because he got a healthy scratch that night. So he's walking over to the rink and he's like, yeah, he's like, fuck. He's like, Keith sent me a message and said that he got traded. He's like, I think he's just fucking around with me. So he walks in the rink and he's like, holy fuck, mom. She's like, what? She's like, he's like, Keither's warming up on the other team. And his mom's like, maybe he's just playing a joke on you. So anyway, I played that night against that team, and Siegs, I had to stay obviously in Bridgeport.
Was he not one of the top scorers in like Sweden for a bit?
He was.
Where did he go?
In Russia. He played in Russia. He played in Germany. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember seeing his name around a lot.
Yeah, he's a really good player. So, anyways, a couple weeks later, I was driving home from practice, and he calls me. He's like, hey, you're not going to believe what happened. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, dude. He's like, I just pregame skated with Portland, and he got traded to Tampa Bay, and he was playing against Tampa. He was playing with like the same thing. So he did
the same thing you did.
exact same thing. Both of us.
I couldn't believe it. Like, I didn't know what pro hockey was like. I had no idea. I had grown up in a small town, and I thought hockey teams were hockey teams. I got to pro hockey and I was like, I don't even know what this is. Yeah, you're not on a team. There's just players coming in and out, and you're just part of an organization.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is not what I'm about.
Yeah. It's crazy, right?
That's why I like going to Germany. And there's like, this is the team we've signed. This is what we got. And we're going to make it work. And if we got to fire a guy or two, then we do. But that's that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was unheard of.
Anyways, that's wild.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We better keep moving. Jeepers. We can talk, apparently.
Yeah.
So after your Anaheim time, you go to Bridgeport and you get a couple more NHL games.
Mm-hmm.
You played for the Islanders.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was important to me at that point in my career, because when I left Chicago, you kind of get to the point in your mind where you're like, you don't think
you'd be pissed off at that point, right? Because you should have been on the team the year of the lockout, and then I might have had a good chance the year of the lockout, but that was never my mindset, because I always played with like a really good group of guys in Norfolk, or I never would have thought I was better than those guys, right? But like when I got sent down from Chicago, the year I made it, and the GM at the time, it said, well, you're not even what do you want me to do? You're not even a depth player for us anymore. I kind of took it personally, whereas like, well, hang on, like, no, I can still play. So when I got called up to play with the Islanders, nobody had to know, but you could actually be like, well, fuck you, I did do it. I did get back. Yeah.
Right? It was only 3 games, but it was.
But you did it. No, you another organization took you serious enough to bring you up to the NHL. That's huge.
Yeah, no, and then that meant a lot to me, right? And then that was it. Yeah, that was kind of.
But yeah, but it's not. I don't know. I mean, there's the NHL, but like there's a lot of leagues in the world, I mean, that pay people to play hockey.
Totally.
Right?
Totally. And that's just it. And I think that you kind of have to, that's kind of where you have to look at it too, is like, well, like, yeah, of course you wish you could have stayed there, or you maybe got a few more years or whatever. But at the same time, you're like, well, and my wife and I talk about it all the time. It's like, yeah, we maybe, like before I started working, or in her work life or whatever, you're like, well, don't have a lot of work experience, but a ton of life experience living other places, right? And doing things that not all of us get a chance to do and be.
If it wasn't for hockey, there's no way we're traveling the world and seeing all the shit we did, right? Like, we haven't even got into, like, you went to Germany, Sweden, all this stuff, right? Like, we've been doing this forever, and like, there's still a lot to cover, but like, it's because we were playing hockey, and
Mhm.
I mean, when it comes to talking around the shed, it seems like if you're not a great teammate, you don't get to keep doing all
Mhm.
this fun stuff.
Mhm. Yeah, no kidding. For sure.
Right. And like,
Yeah.
so then you still do. So you play the 2 more games for a new organization. And that I remember those days. I remember the days where like that one organization has you, they have
Mhm.
all their guys. And if you switch to another organization, they already have all their puppies. They already have all their kids coming up. They have
Mhm.
all the guys that they're invested in, their scouts, their everything else. And it's like to say this guy is better than those guys. For
Right.
them to give you NHL games, man, that's huge.
Yeah. No, it was awesome. It was, I remember because I had a English bulldog at the time, and I was walking the dog. We were living on the beach in Connecticut, and the
Living on
coach,
the beach in
yeah,
Connecticut.
the coach called me, and he's like, yeah, he's like, what are you doing? So I started walking the dog. He lived right beside us actually, and he's like, yeah, he's like, you got called up. He's like, you got to be in Long Island tomorrow morning. So from there, it was like an hour and a bit drive, but we left at like 5:30. Or whoever, I can't remember who I got called up with, and we drove down. And you're like, fuck, this is insane. Driving down to New York, like it's
Yeah,
crazy.
it is crazy.
It was cool. Yeah, it was cool. And I
That's
got to
cool.
play
You
there. I
got
got
to
to play.
live that.
Yeah, I got to play. The first game was against New Jersey, which is a big rivalry, and then the next game at home was the last home game of the year, was against the Rangers. And then the next game was against the Rangers in Madison Square Garden. So it was cool. It was a really cool 3 games. I was lucky to be there for those 3 games.
No, yeah. No, it sounds really fun.
Mm-hmm.
I never got to do cool shit like that, but it's cool.
Yeah, but you get to play the Salts in Cardiff, so it's pretty much the same.
For at least a month until my knee went. Yeah. Okay. We got to keep going. You gotta get to work in the morning. So do I.
Yeah, let's
Here we
go. We
go.
got a few more. You got a few more minutes.
Few more. Ready?
Okay.
After the whatever Anaheim days, the Islander days, you finally decide to head to Germany. How did you decide to head to Germany? Was it you're a veteran in the AHL, or did you actually want to go?
No, I was still with New York. They had said at the time they wanted to re-sign me, or they were thinking about it. And then they ended up signing a guy. I can't remember his name right now. Basically, the exact same player as me, just bigger, better, and faster, and more offensive.
One
And
of
so I
those
kind of knew,
guys.
yeah. So
The
I kind
new
of knew.
toy.
So I kind of knew. I was like, okay. I'm like, and this was July 1st, and I was like, okay, well, maybe that's not the spot. And then and my agent was like, and typical for me, like that was always the way it was. I was never the first guy to sign, but I spoke to my agent and I said in July, and I said, well, maybe it's time to start looking in Europe. And he said, well, that would have been nice to know, in April. And I said, in April.
Well, that's when Europe happens, right?
Yeah, and
it's crazy.
I said in April, I called you and told you I was getting all these messages from agents in Europe. Anyways, I ended up, and he's like, okay, let's see, we'll get you something. So I went to Germany. It was awesome. It was awesome. But I knew by Christmas, I was like, okay, I'll play 1 year. I'm like, I got to go back and try to go back to try and give it another kick at the can.
You weren't done trying to make it.
No, and I
you
knew
were
that
too
right
close.
Away.
I wasn't close enough to feel that way.
But after I came home for a couple of years, I went back to Chicago. Thankfully they took me back, and then I got to play a year in Abbotsford, which is like basically my hometown. That was great. And then after that, I kind of knew, okay, I'm not one of the guys that is going to either make enough money in the American League to make it worth it, or be a guy that's going to get called up again. And then I kind of, decided it was time to go to Europe for good.
So then you went back again, and then you go to Örebro or Örebro.
Örebro, yeah.
And did you get into saunas?
We didn't know. I think I don't know if it was. I think it's more of like a Finnish thing.
Yeah, you didn't get into them in Sweden, eh?
No, well, they had them. We went to those, like we went to places like that had like the yeah, you could go to them and right, like the big
Yeah. Oh yeah. There'd
yeah
be saunas everywhere. I just didn't know if you
yeah
got into it. Okay.
yeah
No,
no
just curious question. So I hear that league's whatever and it
yeah
whatever, right?
it was good.
Whatever.
No, it was good. It was awesome. Yeah,
Yeah. So you had a good year. Wife's with you over there?
that was her first year like coming overseas or living away from home, and we met a lot of really good people there in Sweden, and when we were leaving it was tough. It was hard because
Oh
she
shoot.
kind of
I forgot something. I wanted
okay.
to know about your first Autobahn experience.
Oh yeah, well I had
When
a
you went to Germany and you're playing
yeah
in Ingolstadt, your
yeah
first time going on the Autobahn, how fast did you go?
I can't even remember, but it was I just remember there's a bunch of imports and they took us to Audi, like where the cars are like built, and that's where we all got our cars.
Mm-hmm.
And there's guys who had never driven a stick vehicle
Yeah.
in their life. So they're trying to get out of the we're all trying to get out of the dealership, like just without hitting anything, right?
And they
They're
can't drive
beautiful
at all.
no, they're beautiful brand new cars. Like they're yeah, it was awesome. That was crazy. And it was only like 40 minutes to Munich, right? So
You
you
were not far from where
bomb.
I was. I was in Landshut, but
Oh,
yeah.
okay. My GM, Tobias Abstrader. You remember Toby Abstrader?
What? That was your GM?
He was our GM my first year.
Peter Abstrader was my line mate in Landshut.
And so that's his brother, right?
Yes, that's right.
And now he's, well, not now, but like 10 years ago, he was working for, I think when started working with CCM or something. I don't know.
Oh yeah, no, I got to catch up with them soon for sure. Yeah.
He was awesome.
Peter Abstrader is one of my favorite line. Well, he is one of my favorite line mates I've ever had. He was everything I needed in a line mate, and I wish I would have played with him more.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, definitely. He was a left winger that went to the net, could score goals, and was a beauty.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was Toby was awesome. He was an awesome, but I think he might have got fired when the coach got fired.
Yeah,
like
and he would have
December,
been
but
young, right? He would have been young.
he was super
that.
young. Yeah, he was super young. But then he went to Landshut, and then he went to.
I have no idea whatever has gone on since I left Germany. I should find out soon. Okay, so then, anyways, I think the next year's the lockout, right? Again, another lockout, right?
Yeah, another lockout.
And you had to check.
Yeah, not good.
No,
it wasn't good. It was just I wasn't the player that they thought I was, and it wasn't what I thought it was. It was just like.
Did they think that you were like a big high end scorer because you put up 45 points in the AHL?
Yeah, no, I just fuck. I remember they picked us up in Prague, and the AC in the van was broken. The lady who picked us up couldn't speak any English. They take us to the rink, which is beautiful. The GM can barely speak English. He takes us to our apartment. We walk in, and we're like, it's right beside like a brothel. And he closed. He's like, yeah, okay, it's okay. And so, we're like, yeah. And I closed it. I'm like, yeah, it's fine. Like, my wife.
And this is you and your wife.
Yeah, and the dogs. Yeah, and then
the dogs are with you too.
Yeah, and then I went to the rink the next day. I practiced, and I came home and I said, "Don't worry, we probably won't be here long, anyways."
So you went to one practice and you could just feel it.
I knew, and I played. I think I played we had 17 exhibition games. We were in Russia in a KHL tournament, and I think I had one assist.
Stop scratching your shoulder. Stop it. I can hear you scratching your shoulder. But yeah, so anyways, okay, we're going fast now, right?
Okay, quicker, yeah. Let's go.
Full speed. Okay. So you get whatever. That happens. Checks. I don't know. Everybody's different from where they came from. Czech guys, like I've played with a few of them. I've had great relationships with some.
Same.
And you know, it's like we all grow up in different situations.
Exactly. Yeah. No, the guys were awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. And like their business, what goes on with the way they hire a guy and fly him over and then treat him that way,
Mm-hmm.
a little different. But anyways, moving on. So you go to Dornbirn after that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So then you get fired after 4 games or whatever happens.
Yeah.
And then you got to find a job, and it's the middle of a lockout.
Well, that was the problem. Is I had a buddy, Danny Bois, who I played with in Rockford, and he set me up with his GM in Dornbirn, and the GM said, "Hey, listen, we're not sending any NHL players, so take your time. Make sure you get your money from Karlovy Vary, and we'll send a guy to come pick you guys up." And they did that, and then so I had nothing to worry about. It worked out really, really well. And Dornbirn's an awesome place too. It's like
I played an exhibition game there, and it was a beautiful barn with mountains all around it.
Yeah,
right?
it was right in the mountains, a small town. But that year was an expansion team, but it was great. And they were actually like I think they were sponsored by the same like Red Bull kind of like sponsor them, right? So there was like the little brother of Red Bull.
Nice.
So yeah,
are they still really playing in that tiny little barn? Maybe
Red Bull.
No, the Dornbirn team. Like I remember that old.
Yeah,
yeah.
But it's good. It's a good rink, right? That's a good league. It's a really good league.
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of the leagues over there are better than everybody thinks, right?
For sure.
Okay, so after that year, then you go to the big budget Salzburg team, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you guys did well. You said you guys did well. You guys went
it was awesome.
right to the finals.
Funny story. Remember earlier we were talking about I got traded in Spokane for Doug Lynch.
Yeah.
This guy, Doug Lynch, right? So he got traded there as like my buddy. So anyways, he was in Salzburg, and he'd been there for years. He was making good money, and he was there for like the Pierre Pagé days where they were like
I heard a lot about of those days.
Yeah. So anyways, so me and Doug, we were buddies, and one night we played in Graz, and I was playing better. I was playing well. And I'm talking to Dougie. We knew there was a guy coming back from injury, an import. So what you're allowed there, you're like X amount of points. So whether you're an Austrian national team player or an import, you're 4 points, right? So when this guy came back, they had to fire somebody. So we're sitting outside the bus in Graz before we're heading home, and I'm like, fuck. It's
they gotta fire somebody.
Yeah, they're getting rid of somebody, right? And I'm like, well, it's gonna be me. Like I'm thinking, right? Because I'm like, there's no chance. And Dougie's like, God, Keith, it's gonna be brutal to see you go. Like you're just, and Doug's like the most positive guy you can meet. He's like, it's gonna be brutal to see you go, man. He's like, fuck. He's like, well, you never know. He's like, fuck, you never know. So we get on the bus. We go back to Salzburg. Unpack our gear at the rink. I get home. I get into bed, and I was talking to my wife, and my phone starts buzzing. It's Dougie, and I call him back. I'm like, Dougie, what's going on? He's like, you're not gonna fucking believe it. I'm like, what? He's like, I just got fired. So they fired him, but just because they had too many defensemen. Maybe but they paid him. They're like, we'll pay you all of your money to not sign anywhere else.
Really?
So this is November, and he went home and took all his money, and that was it.
And then what? His career's over?
Yeah, I think that was it. That was it for him. He was probably getting close to wanting to be done anyways. Yeah,
I guess. But like, if you're saying like don't sign anywhere else in November, you're saying like I don't want you on any other team, but we don't want you on our team. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, they had the money, right? I think the part of the deal was that you could get a full buyout, but not.
What's wild to me is like when I watch a kids game, and I just want I want my team. But when you're saying you can put together a team of guys, and you're saying I don't want you to play for anybody else, but I don't want you to play for us, that doesn't make sense.
I know. Yeah. But he probably had a choice, right? Like I think he did have options to go to other teams if he wanted, but he's probably making more
Some of
money
the
with
stuff that
Silver.
happens in Europe when it comes to like contracts and like
Oh yeah,
it
it's
gets
crazy.
pretty wild.
It's wild. Yeah, it is for sure.
um, but it was really fun getting to play
Mm-hmm.
the end of my career against you guys and the Glasgow Clan, because to be honest, it brought back my passion to hockey. Was like it was a bunch of dandies going out to play a game against a bunch of other dandies, and playing you guys. For some reason, Glasgow really hit home with me because I really liked a bunch of guys on your team. And then like I
Mm-hmm.
didn't even know Mizey when I started this shed. And I really
He's
liked that guy.
he is one of the nicest, most down to earth people you could meet. He's
Yeah.
just like he's such a good guy, and I don't think you could ever any of those guys on that team. Like I don't think that anybody would ever say anything bad about him. He's
No,
such a
and
good guy.
it was a team. You guys had a squad, and I remember it, and that's why I brought you guys on as like
Mm-hmm.
individuals, as like a group, is because when I went there and played Glasgow, I enjoy teams that are teams, and like
Mm-hmm.
you leave the rink and you see them, just the way they walk out of the rink is different.
Mm-hmm.
The way like their girlfriends interact and their wives and the kids, like they're either a team and a family or they're not. And you
Mm-hmm.
guys were that year.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, and that 1 year, that 2015 year, that was
That was the
unreal.
year I'm talking about. I'm talking about the other
Yeah,
years. I don't know about those ones.
yeah. just the one you were there.
Yeah, that was the only one I
Awesome.
paid attention to. But
Cool.
seriously, thank you so much for coming to my shed. And I know you got an early morning, and
Mm-hmm.
I got shit to do too. But thank you so much for finally giving me my one-on-one time.
Awesome. No, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Okay, and
It's been
this has
awesome.
been another episode of 4 to 7 Ales and Hockey Tales with Keith and Wally.